tonight's thought. Why is it that I don't dig on fireworks? Not necessarily watching them. You know, the bombs bursting in air. I like what they symbolize, and I like their ambience. I like hearing them in the sky. I like seeing them in the sky. Some days I've actually traveled in my car great distances to go and see them. It's just the holding them and the lighting the fuse that I don't like. I haven't done this in years, and it's not that it's not a tradition of mine. It's just something that I've never done, and I think it's just because I have this I don't know, existential opposition as an adult to lighting fireworks, to holding them in my hand. And I don't know if this is a trauma thing or something that I'm dealing with, the same way that I deal with trauma of like snakes and things that I've had bad experiences with in the past. I don't know. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here. See, it's July 4th week, and everywhere you go, and you're hearing fireworks. No matter where you go, I'm in the city, and yes, I'm hearing some fireworks right now. There's a big 4th of July fireworks show on Red Mountain. I can't see it because of all the trees and all the foliage and the light pollution. But I can see, I can hear it, and I can see the smoke going into the atmosphere. There's a big fireworks show going on right now in Birmingham. It's the 4th of July as I'm recording this. And they go together so well with so many things, right? They go together with just the heat and the humidity of midsummer. They go together with all the cheers of the bar patrons down the street in Lakeview. They go together with just that smell of sizzling meat and steaks, just people grilling in their backyards. It was thunderstorming here earlier, but that didn't deter people. They just waited 5 minutes. And they picked up their grills. They kind of put them into their covered patios. And as soon as the rain cleared out, they did too. And it looks like there was a rain delay for the fireworks on Red Mountain. They waited 5 minutes, and there it was. They were having it again, right? So I like seeing fireworks just like every other American. So why have I not bought a firework or a firecracker or something, right, since I was probably 12 years old? I just think it's because I think I come from a long line of fireworks deniers. I think that must be what it is, right? I think my father and my grandfather, I think, used to be real fireworks connoisseurs. They would go buy fireworks as young people. I never saw my grandfather do it, but I did as a very young child. I think the only time I've ever seen my dad purchase fireworks was when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. It may indeed be a very early formative memory. My dad was so excited bringing home these, not the kind that you shoot way up into the sky, fireworks, but firecrackers, the M80s and Wildcats and pinwheels, right, that you light and then you just step away to a minimum safe distance and just get some kind of like cathartic thrill off of watching these little things blow up in your driveway. And I do remember this as a young child. I think it was before I actually moved to Moody, Alabama, the place I was talking about on last week's show. I think it was when we were still living in Anniston, Alabama. And again, if this is true, this is a true memory. I need to check this with my dad. I was maybe 5 years old, perhaps 5 years old, right? And I do have this memory of sitting in the driveway and watching my dad just maniacally lighting all these little things on fire and probably being quite confused by it. Okay, just being put on this earth. And for the first several years of your existence as a human being, you see love and you see compassion, and maybe you see a few things on television that are mildly disturbing. But other than that, people are smiling, and then there suddenly just comes this one day of the year where you see all these compassionate people that love you and that take care of you and nurture you suddenly just light shit on fire and throw it all over the place willy-nilly. And I do remember my dad just taking this pinwheel or some kind of thing that had a fuse and telling me to stand back in the driveway while he went to the mouth of it. And he took a big red kitchen match and lit this thing on fire and stepped away, and he said, "Get ready for this." And then it just popped, right? It just was like the I shouldn't say it popped, it fizzled out, right? The popping, I guess, was meant to be like, that's the sound that a fuse makes, right? When it's a dud, it just kind of goes, down, right? And my dad just walks up to it and he's like, "What's the matter with it?" And stands right over it and puts his hand on it. And suddenly the thing goes off all over the place, right? And there's big sparks and everything, and my dad just like jumps back and immediately starts running into the kitchen looking for the first aid kit, right? And left a mark. It left a big black ash mark. And from that moment on, I need to check it with him. I never saw him buy, right, another firework, another firecracker, nothing. Okay. Everything from that minute on, if it could be lit, it was usually battery powered in my house. Okay. So these things scared my dad, right? And this is a guy, he had been at Vietnam, right? Another person who had done service. My grandfather also. My grandfather, I didn't know much about him. He died when I was in high school. I knew that he was funny. He could be very charming and funny. But also very stoic, right? Almost every time I saw him, he would come over to my parents' house and babysit us, or I would go over to his house up on Sand Mountain, and he would always just be sitting there in his chair, smoking his cigarettes and doing the crossword puzzle and watching television. And just a very not a man of very few words, right? But the some words that I did hear him say once is, "I hate firecrackers. I hate fireworks." Okay. And this was always a problem because usually we would go and see them when I was in middle school. We would go see them on 4th of July weekend because my grandmother's birthday is, July 3rd. So that was a big celebration, and we would always sit out on their back porch in the swing and look at all the fireworks going off over the mountain. They had a great view up there on Sand Mountain, and we could see the fireworks. And we would always say, my grandmother would always tell me, because I was a very dumb kid, she would always say, "They're doing those for me. They're doing those for me. It's my birthday," right? On July 4th, I would say like, well, they're a day late. Didn't they get the message? Right. And of course, my grandfather would not participate in any of this. He would be sitting down. He had his own den in the downstairs, a place where all the dogs would go with him, and he would just sit there and continue to smoke and do the crossword puzzles, while we all enjoyed the display. And one year, it got to a bit of a fever pitch. I was just really missing fireworks. We were there for the weekend for a big family reunion out in the country at this big Cumberland Presbyterian church that my mom's side of the family had founded 100 years ago. We always went out there every summer around July 4th. And as you know, right, when you're driving out into the country, you just see nothing the entire late June, early July month of July, but fireworks stands everywhere, right? And we were in Tennessee, and they just, I don't know what it is in Tennessee. They have like very lax laws. They've always been like that for fireworks. And they had some of the biggest, some of these fireworks stands were bigger than the Galleria Mall. They were just gigantic, and you could go in there, and there were just endless aisles of firecrackers and fireworks that you could buy wholesale. And I'm sure that maybe they supplied some of the smaller, startup fireworks businesses along the road there in the country in Tennessee. And my grandfather was with us, and I sensed this year there was something a little bit different about him. He seemed to be a little bit happier than usual, and in a better mood. And I think it may have had something to do because of what happened later. I think it may have had something to do with the fact that he had just gotten this new garden hose. And and I'm not exaggerating this at all. Like, I think that this is genuinely why he was so excited. He had just gotten this new gigantic. They lived in a house up on Sand Mountain with a gigantic yard that really was just a field around them. And they planted things everywhere, and they kept very good care of their lawn, their manicured lawn. And my grandfather had just gotten a new garden hose, and I think that may have had something to do with why he was so excited. And so, of course, being a little kid, I exploited that excitement, and I said, like, hey, why don't we stop off over here at this fireworks emporium and get some stuff to celebrate the 4th of July? And he immediately just kind of shut down. He's like, ugh, right? And I think a combination of my mom being there, my grandmother being there, and the fact that I don't think my sisters were there for some reason. I think they were probably off doing something else. And I think there was just kind of this guilt that I was probably putting on them, right? That my sisters are off doing something really fun, and I'm here, and I'm going to be stuck in the country on the 4th of July. So I think they gave into that, and they just wanted to give me that, right? So this is what happened. We go and we get these a whole batch of Roman candles. Roman candles. These are the things that you light, and I guess you can. Can you hold them? I don't know. It's been so long since I've had Roman candles. I have some kind of childhood image of people holding Roman candles. They can just kind of shoot them off in different directions at low levels. I think these qualify as firecrackers, right? Or maybe fireworks, because they are projectiles, right? And I do remember just getting a whole batch of Roman candles. And my grandfather's just kind of huffing and puffing the whole way. And we leave the emporium, and then we go back to the house on Sand Mountain. And my grandfather immediately kind of comes in the house, and right, he just kind of huffs down the stairs, and he's like, if you need anything, I'll be down here. And just goes down that long corridor of stairs to his basement den to sit in his chair. And in the meantime, I'm going out. I'm so excited, right? I go outside, and I get all my supplies together in the kitchen matches. And of course, because I'm so little, my mom and my grandmother are both there, right? And I don't remember any of the dogs being around us. I think they probably follow my grandfather. And so I have these Roman candles, right? And I take the first one, and it's getting really dark, and I'm like, this is the first fireworks, right? So I take it, I light it, hear that fuse, and suddenly I freak out. I get really just suddenly shell-shocked and nervous because I hear this gigantic explosive that's about to go off in my hand, and I start thinking probably about my dad and his ashy thumb and how he almost lost a finger. And I start to get really, really nervous, right? And before this thing goes off, I drop it into the grass, and down it goes. And then run away from it as fast as I possibly can. I go under the awning, under the porch, and then all of a sudden, like, what happens? The thing, starts shooting, and it kind of develops like a mind of its own, and it's just kind of spinning in a circle like a sadistic pyromaniac version of like spin the bottle or something, and it's just kind of going all over the place. And my mother and my grandmother are jumping all over. And then suddenly, yes, what happens? The aftermath. We go and check the damage, and of course, there's a gigantic hole through my grandfather's, brand new garden hose. Right? It's just there. It's like it looks like I don't know, just a big old U-shaped hole, right? No water's coming in it, but so there's no water spurting out of it or anything, but it was just so dramatic looking and so sad looking, sitting there in the grass like a dead snake, right? That's just been severed. And so obviously my grandmother and my mother are just, they're speechless. And they look at me and they're just like, you're just going to have to be a man tonight. Okay. So I knew what that meant, right? I knew I had to go back inside and just go through the quiet household. And it's the 4th of July, of course, so all these fireworks start going off over the mountain, and so we're hearing all this, and the sky's lighting up, and it's kind of casting a particular glow throughout the house. And I just kind of look down the stairs. Look down these stairs, and like the wood paneling is kind of lighting up in hues of red and blue. And it just looks very, in my memory anyway, I'm not sure how this is really what happened. But I do remember standing up there and just knowing what I had to do and just looking down into down those long stairs, down that long corridor, and just like seeing the light, right, of my grandfather's den. And it was just kind of looking and just knowing that you're about to kind of go into the pits of hell to tell the devil that you just like converted half of the world to Jesus or something. So I just kind of looked down this and, oh gosh. And I really don't think that from that day on, I don't think that I have bought a single firework or a firecracker, right, every year. Even now when I go out into the country and I see all these fireworks stands, I mean, I think it's a fantastic government program, right, that they've got going there. Every year, once a year in like late June and early July, they let all of the mentally infirm, out to go run the fireworks stands, and they're all named Bill, right? Crazy Bill, or Larry, Crazy Larrys, Wild Larrys, right? Insane Bills, okay, selling fireworks to people, and yeah, I just kind of pass them all by, right? I just kind of let, I let the job of lighting the fireworks up to to the true patriotic people to do the Lord's work, right? Well, for Birmingham, Alabama, this is the Midnight Citizen Show. I am your host, Mike Booty. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And yeah, it doesn't matter that it's not the 4th of July wherever you are, right? Our realities are synchronizing. It's a beautiful night, right? Even if it's the day for you, okay? And we're back in the studio. We've been out in the world the last couple of weeks, the last couple of shows. You've been, if you're a listener, if you've been listening, you know that I've been out and about, not in the studio. The way that it's been happening is that I've been, did a couple of shows. A couple of weeks ago, I just sat in the backyard with my friend Dave, and we had a really good conversation. I hope you listened to that episode. We talked all about Six Flags and like the Monster Plantation and stuff like that. And that inspired me to pull some videos that I'm going to show you a little bit later on the Video Street Video Store. So definitely stick around for that. Okay. And then, last week was a great show. I hope you enjoyed it. I had just come in from the country, from going to my old hometown of Moody, Alabama. And then the next day I went to the River Chase Galleria. I played pinball. I was just kind of out and about. The only time in the history of the Midnight Citizen Show, and there have been many, when I've recorded in the mall and I've gotten bounced. That's the only time last week when I recorded in the mall. I recorded a podcast and did not get thrown out by security or asked to stop recording or something like that. I don't know. I guess the podcasting gods, were on my side, right? So that was good. And now we're back here in the studio. And I believe the fireworks shows are kind of just ending here in Central Standard Time on the 4th of July in the United States on planet Earth. Yeah. I've been watching a live stream. If you are watching on video, I've been watching a live stream of fireworks in Jacksonville, Florida. And just as I said that just now, the YouTube live stream, it cut to the video ended, and it just cut to a bunch of YouTube thumbnails. Right? There's other fireworks shows I can watch. Here's one from EarthCam. Right? I don't know why. Okay, so there's videos for like the Beverly Hills Cop stars reunite after 30 years for a new film. And it's not what you think it is. It is exactly what you think it is. Beverly Hills Cop 4. The taxi episode that sent Chris Lloyd into the future. That's another thumbnail I've got. All right, let's watch some more fireworks. I don't know. Let's see what we got. We got an ad, of course. And we'll skip that. And yeah, we got some more fireworks. Here we go. This is, I don't know where this show is. Yeah. It just says, fireworks show. It started streaming 8 hours ago. Now, wait a second. Maybe that was like people kind of getting ready for it, like news correspondents sort of talking about the fireworks show. I am correct in assuming, right, the only place in the world that they celebrate the 4th of July is in the United States, right? It is ostensibly when our country gained its independence from the United Kingdom, right, under the reign of George III. Okay. And to celebrate that every year, yeah, we kind of simulate, I suppose, bombs bursting in air. I guess this is like a tradition that we inherited from the Chinese. Is that correct? Right. But yeah, I know there's other things like Bastille Day. That's pretty close. I don't know when Bastille Day is, but right. I think that's pretty close by. But yeah, a lot of fireworks shows are ending here in the United States, if they haven't ended already. So, and here I am. The show. Yeah, it's been this has been kind of an unusual 4th of July week for me. Namely, my wife and I have just had kind of an unusual summer. Usually we are traveling around the 4th of July, right? We're taking trips, and we've had some pretty good vacations where we've gotten to see fireworks all over the country. Niagara Falls was one year, I believe. Although they do a fireworks show, I think, there every night. So going there on the 4th really isn't that special, but it was still a nice show. Right, and we'll go to, we went one year to Wisconsin, got to see some fireworks over Lake Michigan, Savannah, Georgia, Pensacola, Florida, right? It always feels weird whenever you see fireworks here in Birmingham, Alabama, because it's not really a great landscape to do fireworks over. There's nothing really. It's just kind of a big parking lot, right? That they shoot the fireworks out over. I think the strength of a fireworks show is boosted significantly by its environment, right? Going off over rivers, lakes, and oceans and things like that. And here it just kind of goes off over all the news stations, all the broadcast towers on Red Mountain and things like that. So, right. And yeah. But, yeah, it's something I enjoy. I enjoy watching these shows. But yeah, but this summer though, my wife and I, we've been pretty much homebound. We've been working. My wife has in rehearsals every night right now, she's about to do a show at a local theater here. And so she's been rehearsing for that every night. So we haven't been able to travel. And then also, on top of that, we really haven't had that very crucial thing that you need to travel, which is money, which is an income. I'm between teaching jobs right now. And we also started the summer out taking our dog, Izzy, back and forth to get surgery to remove quite a big mass, and I've been meaning to talk a little bit about this. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's still a little bit too soon, right, for me to recount all the details. The short story is that she is fine. She's doing much better. They managed to get this gigantic tumor out of her, and she's not out of the woods yet. As a matter of fact, we are taking her back in tomorrow for some checkup X-rays. She does have what's called a stage 3 thymoma, which means that she's not cancer-free and perhaps never will be. So for now, we are giving her like chemotherapy pills every morning. We're having to put on these plastic, surgical gloves because to touch these pills could potentially be toxic to us. So that's what we're doing every morning. We're very used to this kind of pet care, right? When you have pets, I think you go through this with almost all of them. There's always some kind of medical hiccup that comes along throughout the life of a cat or a dog or any other kind of pet you have. And for years, we gave our cat Dobby insulin to survive. Yeah, it was good. And taking her to a teaching hospital. Also, we had to take her to Auburn University, which is about a 2.5-hour drive south of us. And so taking her to a teaching hospital meant that you're dealing with a lot of students and a lot of students who are, learning. So the fact that she was able to be quite a learning opportunity for several of the students. As a matter of fact, one of them did her entire senior thesis on Izzy and sent us the slideshow the other day. And she, I'm not sure I wanted to see them, but she did send us like surgery photos. So we actually got to see the thing that they extracted out of her. And to spare you the gory details, it's kind of like, like an alien when that thing comes out of that guy's stomach. It looks pretty much exactly like that. It's just this, I can't believe that she was living with that thing inside of her. But it's out of her now, and we're doing things to make sure that it doesn't come back to that level. So, right. But if you are wondering, if you've been a listener for a while now, that's kind of how I started out this series of shows this summer, is talking about Izzy, because we were just very much in the thick of it, in the thick of getting her to the best care that we could get her. And I've talked to a lot of people since her surgery, just about what they do with their puppies, what they do with their dogs and their cats. And the short of it is, a lot of people seem to have limits. I talked to one guy that says, anything over $1,500 we just can't do. And that's, I totally respect that. $1,500 is a lot of money for everybody. It's a lot of money for us. But it's just the fact that we had gone through something with Dobby where we were pretty much at the end of the road with him after 12 years of containing his diabetes. And we still had that kind of, that thing at the end of Schindler's List where we just could have done more, right? I don't think we could have done more for Dobby, but when they're coming at us with Izzy and they're saying this is totally operable, we just had this moment where we could put her down, we could euthanize her, but we would also have that feeling that we could have saved her, we could have helped her. And this is a dog that we rescued, that we have a fond attachment to. So I don't know. I don't really know if you could put arbitrary thresholds on something that you love like that, right? So that's not something that we've ever done. I think if it comes down to the fact that she just simply can't be saved no matter what, that's where we kind of have to, when it becomes more about us and our feelings, right? That's in not her pain. That's where we kind of have to call it, right? I think that's what it is. All right, okay, I'll stop talking about this. Yeah, I know it is kind of depressing for some people. right? But, you know, on a lighter note, yesterday was Jessica's birthday. And again, she's not able to do much because she's in rehearsal every night. But she was able to sleep in, and she didn't have to do her other job all day. So we were able to go eat brunch and gave her a couple of presents. And one thing I gave her got kind of I got some pushback from like my mom. I gave her a garbage can for her birthday. And this is a daily, you know, usually like for Jessica's birthday and for Christmas. I don't know if this is like an outdated notion. My mom said, even if she said she wanted a garbage can, don't get her a garbage can. Right? And this is the same thing at Christmas. Jessica really wanted a new vacuum cleaner. My mom said, you know, even if she says she wants it, don't get it. And I don't know if this is like an outdated thing. If this is a generational thing, right? Like you're not supposed to get, you know, women, especially your wives, things that they really need. You're supposed to get them things that they want, that they desire, but don't really need, right? Like bracelets, jewelry, and whatnot, right? But I've never found this true with Jessica, and I don't know if it's the same with you and your significant other, right? Or the women in your life. Especially if you're my age, if you're in your, you know, early 40s, it's just this point, right, where if you are trying to take care of your house and there's just something that you need, but you never can seem to either have the disposable income to afford, or it's just around a birthday or Christmas, and you're like, hey, I can get this thing and I can ask for it guilt-free, without feeling like I'm forcing somebody to buy it for me. And yeah, what can I say? I went to Target and I got like the nicest garbage can they had. That's what I did. And sure enough, like she acted like I had just given her, you know, I don't know, like a Rolex wristwatch for ladies. I don't know. Do they make those? All right. She loved it. And she got so excited. She immediately cleared out our annex and cleaned it and swept it up. And we took the old garbage can, out to the dumpster, which almost looks like a Banksy exhibit. It's so ironic, you know, whenever you see a garbage can being thrown away. And yeah, she put it there and just tucked it in. And she just said, like, look how much more space we have. All this space for activities, right? And it's just a clean, sleek-looking garbage can. It looks like RoboCop, right? If he was a garbage can, right? It looks beautiful, and I love, you know, stepping on that thing. Like every time it opens, it's sort of like, and you kind of release it after you throw the thing away, the refuse, and it just kind of slowly goes down. It's like goodbye, right? It's just it's fantastic. Right? Having this new garbage can in our lives, right? I didn't stop there. I got her other things that she didn't necessarily need, right? I got her some flowers, right? I put the garbage can under a nice vase of flowers, right? And I also got her I got her a nice book, right? Anyway, a book that I think she'll like. She did like it. Her birthday was yesterday, right? And yeah, we went out to brunch. It was a good birthday, right? We had a good time. We came home and watched a movie, and I don't think she has any complaints, my wife, after this nice birthday that I gave her. So, last week, a friend reminded me that, speaking of birthdays, a pretty big birthday, or anniversary, I guess I should say, was just had by my friends and I. Yeah, my friend Jason, who I think I talked about on last week's show, he was house sitting about a block or so away from me, and I went over there several nights, and we hung out in the backyard and watched movies. And he reminded me, like, hey, it's been 20 years since we made that movie. And I was like, 2024, 2014, 2004. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's been 20 years since we made Fred's Oasis. And I think I've talked about Fred's Oasis. I've kind of given details on the show before, probably for the 10th anniversary, right? Or the 15th anniversary back in 2019. I don't know. But, yeah, it's been 20 years since we made this movie, Fred's Oasis, which was just a pretty big hallmark in our lives. I cannot say that this is a good movie at all. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty ashamed of it. And I'll show you some clips in just a few minutes that explain why. But on the other level, kind of proud of it as well, because this was a movie that we made out in the country in, I think it was Fort Payne, Alabama, in the summer of 2004, around this time of year, around the 4th of July. As a matter of fact, I think we wrapped filming. We filmed it over one weekend. I think we filmed it in the weekend before the 4th of July. And so this is a movie that we, Jason and our friend Vince and I conceived. We wrote it, and within like a week or so of finishing the script, we were out in the country filming with like a full cast of something like 10 people that we had managed to wrangle together and not pay them. They were just basically all of our friends, right? And I think the movie came together because Vince was an actor. He was in the University of Alabama at Birmingham theater program. And Jason was in the theater program as well, but Jason wasn't an actor. He wanted to go into filmmaking. And I was kind of approaching it more from like just the writer angle. But I think I also was just rallied into making this movie because Jason and Vince were doing it, and they would have they would come over to my apartment in Idlewild Circle by UAB, and we would just watch movies long into the night and just kind of discuss about different movies we liked. And the kind of films that we tended to go toward in those days, like in our very early 20s, there's something about just being in your early 20s and being raised in the 90s, which is just the heyday of violent films. You just I don't know, like I don't know if, again, if you're my age or around my age, if this is the same for you, but we just had this real affinity for like violent cinema. And I talked a little bit about Pulp Fiction last week. Obviously, we had all been raised on Pulp Fiction and Quentin Tarantino, and had read a lot of interviews by Quentin Tarantino and seen a lot of him talking about movies. And, of course, a lot of the things that Tarantino was influenced by was stuff that he had seen growing up in the 70s. And so, naturally, we would go and we just became, as a lot of people did back then, I think, connoisseurs of, 70s and 80s horror movies, grindhouse films, and things like that. And at the time, DVD obviously had exploded to the point, to past the point where just new movies were getting released on DVD, and all these much smaller independent labels, things like Anchor Bay, for instance, were releasing these classic horror movies that for years you've been able to find in video stores, but now they were releasing them on like really nice transfers and, with director commentaries and special features and all that, telling you how they had made the movie. So every time you got one of these DVDs, like you say Evil Dead, for instance, right? It was like just buying a film school in a box, being able to like find out how they had made certain movies. And I think I've talked about this on the show in the past. Around that time also, Bruce Campbell, right, who had starred as Ash in Evil Dead, of course, had published a book called "If Chins Can Kill." This just very classic book about his life as a B movie actor. And what he had written in that book was essentially the blueprints on how to make an independent movie. And we had all just absorbed that book and that knowledge and not really thinking about the fact that he's talking about how you make a movie, an independent movie in the late 70s and early 80s, right? This is the early 2000s. How you make an independent movie in the early 2000s, which is what we realized after talking about it, was, you go down to a Best Buy and get a $200 camera, and you just get a bunch of your friends who want to be actors, and you just film the movie, right? Like, that was the time when just all of the gates were being blown open, and you had no excuses anymore. Okay. Like, Bruce Campbell talked about, like, going to dentists and getting those people to invest in them making a movie and going from Michigan down to the woods of Tennessee. And there was such romance about that, right? And pretty soon we were just being like, well, we can just cut out all that blah, blah, blah business part, and we could just go to the woods. In this case, not in Tennessee, but go to the woods in Fort Payne, Alabama, where Jason's girlfriend, her family owned a bunch of property up there, and we could just shoot up there. And so that's what we decided to do. We decided to make kind of a grindhouse 1970s, 1980s horror movie. And we weren't talking about making it like a just a sex and violence kind of boring slasher movie like a Friday the 13th or something like that, like The Prowler. We wanted to make a more sophisticated, right, type of film, something with character development and something with something that actually explains the violence while getting you to think about it, right? In other words, I think this is how all the story meetings for every bad B horror movie that you've ever seen has gone, right? But we thought we were onto something. We thought we were really doing something fun. And back in those days, like me and Jason, for instance, and I was just talking with him about it the other night, sitting in the backyard of the house that he was taking care of. We were really influenced, right, by Sam Peckinpah. Okay. Sam Peckinpah, who made exploitation movies, but very high art exploitation movies. And one of his films that we were particularly interested in was Straw Dogs. Okay. This movie he made in 1971 with Dustin Hoffman as this sheepish mathematician from America who flees all the violence on his campus, all the anti-war protest. And he goes out to the English countryside with his English wife, played by Susan George, right? And, Dustin Hoffman doesn't quite fit in there well. He finds that the English countryside is indeed just as violent, if not more violent, than the American campuses that he was running from, okay? And so we loved the fact that in that movie, Dustin Hoffman is kind of constantly pushed to the edge to the point where his violence just explodes and he holes up in his house and defends it against all these people. It's one of these movies I would call like a fortress, a castle defense movie, right? And there's something going on about that in that movie that Jason and I really responded to, which is the fact that that the violence is not clear. Like, Dustin Hoffman is certainly justified in striking out against these guys who were attacking his house, but he also is very excessive, and he also doesn't really know why he's defending his house against the violence, against these men, against these violent men, right? He's just doing it because he hates them so much. And so the movie makes you meditate a little bit on what it means to do violence, right? Is violence really justified if you're just being simply pushed around? Or is that being pushed around simply a catalyst to bring out the violence that was always in you? Me and Jason, as young students of film in college, were very interested in this idea, right? Now, Vince, on the other hand, okay, I think was every bit as interested in that stuff, but I think at the end of the day, Vince's proclivities ran more to things like The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left. These movies where there's really no ambiguity whatsoever about the protagonist defending themselves with aggressive acts of violence against inbred hillbillies, or drug dealers or something like that, right? So those nights at my apartment, when I was 20, 21 years old, were full of a lot of really great productive conversation, a lot of us talking about all the things that we loved in these movies, and wanting to somehow come up with a movie that was something like that, right? That was something of that ilk, right? And I'll kind of tell you a little bit more about that, but I'm going to take a break for a minute and play you some music, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about Fred's Oasis in a little bit more detail. Okay. And back now. You heard in that music break a couple of tracks. Never played them before. What did you hear? First track you heard was You Shake Me by the Stompin' Riff Raffs. The next track, Shannon and the Clams, is the name of the band. And I think you know the name of the track because I said it like a million times in it, but it was called Toxic Revenge. And this is the Midnight Citizen Show. Welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Booty. And watching some fireworks still. I don't know. This one show, I don't know where it is, but this one show is really picking up now. They're going with their grand finale right now. Right? Pretty nice. Sky full of smoke. What is that, Ed Wood? No. Yeah. I will tell you, if you want to watch some fireworks on YouTube, be my guest. They're all over the place. They're a lot of fun. I wouldn't read the comments though. Don't read the comments. People on the internet have a funny way of saying really terrible things in comment sections. It's fairly tame tonight, but there is definitely a lot of MAGA Nation going on, right? Yeah. So, I think that's the thing about the 4th of July, right? It reminds us that we're all living under the same fireworks. And so that's all it is. But yeah, welcome back to the show again, Midnight Citizen Show. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you've made it in this far into listening to one guy talk, I am really not like a lot of other podcasts out there. I don't really talk about one thing at all. I just talk about a whole bunch of stuff. It makes me really difficult to categorize. I don't think it's actually that tough, actually. I just basically call myself night radio. I think night radio, that's pretty evocative. That tells you what I'm going for, right? Yeah. So, if you want to find more of the shows I've done, I've been doing shows now for 14 years. My show is on my Substack at mikesbonfire.substack.com. You can check out all my podcasts there as well as other stuff I do. I do writing. I've been releasing some short stories every Thursday this summer. Very summer-themed short stories. I've got one going on right now, which is up. I just posted it today. It's called Surfing the Hangman. It takes place in small town Alabama at a 4th of July carnival. I think you'll like that story a lot. It's probably, I think I'm most proud of that story out of all the other stories that I've released this summer to read. So check it out. It's kind of a lengthy short story, but I think it'll pay off for you. I also want to remind you that every Tuesday I release a video, like a video collage. I just call it the Video Street Video Store. I do a little bit of a sampling here on the show. I've been doing this for years. Kind of take you down to like a small town video store and just play some fun videos for you. Things you may have never seen before. Do a small sampling on this show, and then I play you a much longer show. I release it every Tuesday over at mikesbonfire.substack.com. So, hope you check that out. Right. So yeah, when we were last talking about Fred's Oasis, okay, I was kind of bringing you up to date on the conception of this little independent film that my friends Jason, Vince, and I were out to make in the summer of 2004. And me and Jason are very interested in just a meditative piece that makes you think about the nature of violence. And Vince was a lot more kind of straightforward about that. Right? And what we came up with is we came up with this idea of taking these very vulnerable groups of teenagers out into the woods and having them be at the hands of kind of some masochistic young men. And we thought that was kind of a cool idea. It sort of met the criteria that we were all at the intersection of. It wasn't a standard slasher movie. It was a little bit more complicated psychologically. We had this idea of taking, casting some of our friends as mental patients. I guess they were like at a home for troubled kids called Fred's Oasis. And I think the Fred's Oasis, it was an homage to the gas station in the Wes Craven film, The Hills Have Eyes. Like, that's how kind of down the rabbit hole of films that we were into that summer, of grindhouse exploitation films from the 70s, that we took this kind of throwaway, like you only see this sign for Fred's Oasis for like 1 second in The Hills Have Eyes. So I don't know if we thought we were being clever or we were just trying to think of a name. What would the name of this, mental asylum for troubled teenagers be? And we just called it Fred's Oasis, right? And so they were going off into the country to just do repairs, some kind of community service. And we figured this out because we had done a location scout. Like I said, my friend Jason's girlfriend's family had land out there. And it's quite a bit of land, and it had a lot of stuff on it. And one of the things that it had on it was this kind of old, dilapidated, classic country church out there in the middle of the country in Alabama. And we thought, like, okay, that's what the kids are going out there to do. They're going out there to do some kind of community service, right? To rebuild or do construction on, kind of renovate this old church. And so that's what it was going to be, right? And there was also this other interesting thing that was there. There was also a trailer where we could actually go and live for the weekend. And it was a very small, single-wide trailer, but it had a kitchen, it had electricity, it had running water. And we said that in addition to that being where everybody's gonna live, right, for the weekend, that could also be kind of the place where all the kids in the film live. So it became both the place where we lived and the place where the actors, the characters lived. So all of a sudden it was starting to feel very much like Evil Dead, which again is like young 20-somethings we idolized. Okay. Just growing up watching this great movie that was made on such a shoestring budget by a bunch of scrappy kids. We wanted to fulfill that. And I think, our situation is not alone. I think a lot of other people our age who were interested in Evil Dead, and maybe even today, are still trying to fulfill that kind of fantasy. I don't know, but it wasn't a fantasy to us. It was very real. We were about to make a movie, and we started. I kind of took on the mantle of producing the film, and I started calling people left and right and trying to get them, interested in coming out to the country to live for like 3 days in the middle of hot June. and to my surprise, they were saying yes. Yeah, of course. Why not? That'll be fun. Right. And, Jason's girlfriend, Rachel, became the, art director, costume designer, makeup effects artist. And, she started, making everybody shirts, these Fred's Oasis shirts, just taking these, white t-shirts and putting logos on them and everything. And, so yeah, we suddenly just everything kind of suddenly started coming together with this little film. Right. And, so we then thought about the fact that what kind of trouble are these, infirm, people going to get into? Well, they're obviously going to be put out there with these counselors who are not trained at all, who don't know how to, who aren't trained in psychology or anything like that. They're just, these ruffians that are hired off the street by this nonprofit shelter, and they're throwing them in there. And Vince, immediately had the idea of like one of them has to lead the show, because if these 3 counselors are going to attack these kids, because they're out in the middle of the nowhere, they're cut off from everything. Vince says one of them has to drive the action. One of them has to just be a down-and-out sadistic sociopath. And Vince immediately volunteered for that role. He volunteered for the role of Billy, who insisted that everybody call him Billy Badass, right? So that was the thing, okay? So, yeah, so all of a sudden, within a week or so, we wrote the script very quickly, and within a week, we sort of felt that we, had a couple of cameras and we could easily go out to the country and film this thing in 2 days. Okay. And somehow we managed to make that happen. A lot of people and from very small productions to very big productions, like they have this very modest schedule and they think that they can stick to it, but things always get in the way, namely weather. Okay. And in our case, when we got out there to Fort Payne to begin shooting, we suddenly ran into like a rainstorm, as happens in the middle of June in Alabama, as happened today, that rained out all the fireworks and all that. But again, we just waited 5 minutes, but we still were filming when it was raining. That was kind of our whole first day of shooting, as we were so fast and we were so like readily adaptable that we just threw ourselves into problem solving by quickly making script changes. By having it be like these counselors are so far gone and they so don't want to do their jobs that they get off on the fact that they are lording these kids out into the country in the middle of rain, a rainstorm. And so we kind of did that. And then, of course, we were initially in the script going to have them work around the church on the grounds, but then we just simply said, let's just go inside the church and let them do the work there. And so from like once we got inside the church, of course, we filmed a few scenes and the rain cleared out. So it was very nice. Right. So it all came together that weekend, and we even had some star power. the biggest, we actually had a guy, play the, van driver, the guy who drops them off at the church where they're supposed to do all this work. Had just done a magazine spread for like a Mr. Alabama or something like that. So I think there were representatives of like these ripped looking guys from all over the country, and he was Mr. Alabama. So he was our star power. We were like, oh, we could put that on the DVD, right? Starring Mr. Alabama of the universe or something like that. 2004, right? So that was straight up like marketing, just casting this guy. We didn't pay him or anything. He just came up there. He also had the van. He was the one who he's like, I could bring a van too. And it's like, okay, fine. So we slapped a Fred's Oasis logo on his van, and we were on the way, right? So yeah, the whole weekend went pretty well, but the only thing that really stuck in our crawl the whole weekend was me, essentially, because as the filming commenced and as we started to film this grimy grindhouse exploitation movie, I started to feel really bad about myself that I was taking part in this movie. And I think the reason being is because it was, me being like, a nice, growing up in a nice, household where, I was never really allowed to watch any of these movies until I was, 18 or 19 years old, and kind of, had my own VCR in my room, and my parents, didn't know, or really, and then when I moved out of my parents' house and got my own apartment, I was just watching these movies over and over again. I kind of didn't realize how much of, just being a nice kid had rubbed off on me. And there's something about this, and I talked a little bit about this with my friend this week, my friend Jason, when we were watching Straw Dogs, or we were talking about Straw Dogs. And there's something that is easy, I suppose, when you're a 20-year-old kid and you're watching a violent movie, something that's full of sex and violence. You haven't lived long enough to really be desensitized to that stuff. Now, it kind of goes against what you would assume, right? Because being young and growing up and not seeing how cruel the world is, your first exposure to it is usually on television, right? Turning on the television and seeing something scary and closing your eyes and yelling for your mom like that kid does in Home Alone, right? that phase had kind of passed me by. So by my early 20s, I was pretty much desensitized. I was watching super violent movies that probably just a couple of years earlier would have sent me screaming off into, off to hide in the closet or something like that. while I waited for a commercial break to come on. So I had tricked myself, I suppose, through watching all these movies with Jason and Vince and discussing them endlessly, to thinking that I was desensitized to all that. And I guess I was. However, when we started making the movie, a feeling came over me, like a dreadful feeling that suddenly said, like, I am a part of this. I am making this happen. I am actually responsible for putting two girls, filming a scene with two girls being assaulted by two guys, and not, and it just felt, I just started to feel, and also with like the hot summer heat and the griminess and the bugs falling over me and constantly looking around at my feet for snakes, I just felt overwhelmed with shame, I suppose. And that was me for the rest of the weekend. I kind of shut down on everything. And also, like I said, having taken up the mantle of being a producer of the film and getting everything to the point where it could be shot, suddenly everything was being shot, and I kind of just didn't really have a role to do. I didn't think about the fact that, everything that I've put together is now together. So what do I do for the rest of the weekend except stand aside and just watch things be filmed, right? Jason was directing and Vince was acting and all of our friends were acting, right? And so it just became, I hadn't really slept that week either. So it just became a situation where I think mentally collapsed. I was just exhausted, right? And also, as I said, overwhelmed with shame. Okay. So, but nevertheless, like I was very happy because we came out of those woods that weekend with a completed film, and we took it and we edited it, and 20 years later, here I am talking about it. Right? I'm gonna show you some scenes from Fred's Oasis. I'll kind of go from the very beginning. So this very beginning scene, right? We're gonna see all the kids being dropped off by, as I said, our star power. I think his name's Justin, right? Yeah. And check this out. So you hear the thunder that we just incorporated into it because it was thundering all around us and raining. And there's the van pulling up with the Fred's Oasis logo that we strapped on there. All right, fellas. There's Jeremy, our friend Jeremy, who's playing one of the disgruntled counselors, Abe. And our friend Josh, I just saw Josh. I still am very good friends with Josh, playing the other counselor. He's kind of the sheepish counselor who actually wants to help the kids, but he feels overpowered by Abe and Billy.
Bad weather out here.
We're used to it.
What time do I pick you guys up tomorrow?
Make it about noon. We should be done by then.
All right. See you, Abe. Billy.
See you, Ron.
All right, then.
And there's Ron's last scene, that he just dropped the kids off and ran away. He said, "Sure is damn bad weather," and he just ran away, right? And here we have Vince as Billy Badass, kind of being mean to the kids.
Hey, shut up. Yeah? Read me? Huh, Chris Piss?
Hey, don't call him that. You know he don't like being called that.
Damn, you guys are really trying to tug on my every nerve today, ain't you?
It's all right, Billy. Yes. Yes, there will be water provided. There's a freshwater pump across the way from the church.
Any other fucking stupid questions before we move on? Huh? What about you? Huh, Victor? What do you gotta say?
God damn it, Billy. You know he isn't gonna...
Swallow.
Oh, gosh. So, yeah, we had our friend Jeremiah, this guy I worked with at Starbucks, who kind of wanted to be an actor but wasn't sure. I had talked him to coming out here, and I said, "You're going to be the guy, the one Survivor. You're going to be like, we wanted to turn it on its head. Usually there's a final girl. Well, we wanted a final guy. But there was a twist to it because Jeremiah, of course, is playing a troubled teenager. And who is silent the entire movie. And the idea is that he's the one who has the most aggression in him. And he's just learned through like a lot of therapy or whatever to keep it inside of him by not saying anything and not talking. And every time he has like an angry thought, he collects a stick from the forest. So he's going around the entire movie just collecting sticks, right? Okay. So, and I told Jeremiah, we need you to do one thing to stand out from the rest of the cast, other than being really tall, because he is quite tall. We said, we need you to shave your head. And remember, we're not paying you anything. So he shaved his head. And he stands out in the movie quite well, right? So yeah, here's the church where we were filming. I'm not going to do a full commentary on this. I'm just going to show you some different scenes, right? So all the kids are kind of like cleaning the church, just doing like stupid jobs like polishing the piano and kind of sweeping dirt.
Or something? What the fuck? Well, I mean, I've never supervised one of these trips before, but I kind of feel like we're prison guards here. Well, that's kind of what this is, Travis. These are fucked up kids. You know what they'd be up to if they weren't in a home? No, I don't really know them. You see Chris over there? Chris Piss. His file says that his mommy and daddy used to beat the shit out of him when he was a little kid. That's why he went to bed so much. You see that Linky Funk Victor over there? He used to set fires and like sit around in basements or some shit. He's got a real screw loose. And yet the scary thing is, don't you? He's about to turn 18. You know what that means? It means he's about to be released. You see Twyla over there?
I'm going to turn it down here. I'm very uncomfortable. So yeah, we had two sisters who were in the film who played the girls that Vince tries to, I guess, as Billy Badass, come on to and try to convince the other guys, the other counselors, to do the same. And yeah, just that's where I just kind of drew the line. I felt really, really awful about it, and still do to this day. And something that I probably don't even know if I should be talking about, right? Because it makes me, I am a teacher now. I do teach children, and that's what I became. I didn't know that's what I wanted to become at the time, but I don't know. That's the lesson for today, kids. You're not always what you turn out to be, right? But that being said, and again, this may be getting me canceled. I do, at the same time, I am proud of Fred's Oasis, the fact that as a bunch of 20-year-olds, you know, we went into the woods, and in 2 days in really bad weather and hot summer heat, we were able to make a complete horror movie, right? As Ricky Jay says in Boogie Nights, you know, it's a real film, Jack. It's a real film, right? And so, yeah, we edited the movie together and submitted it to some festivals, which, of course, we didn't get into. We did get into the festival at our own college, which was good. We submitted our film along with two other films that I remember just being like, you know, that episode of Twin Peaks: The Return, right, where it's no dialogue at all. It's just kind of sound and fury and the neutron bomb and all that. Both of these movies somehow managed to be that, but, you know, not good. So we won the UAB Film Festival with Fred's Oasis, a horror movie. Okay. And, yeah, if you want to see the movie, I will put a link to it in the show notes. I've been talking to Jason and Josh, and Jeremy is still in town. So he was in LA for a while, but he's back and just got engaged, which is awesome. And yeah, Jeremy, we've been trying to all get together to record just a 20-year anniversary commentary for it. And when we do that, I'll put it up and let you be the judge. Was I right to feel overwhelmed with shame, or were we just a bunch of kids in the woods who just were too desensitized to not really know that we were kind of doing something? I don't know. I mean, it is, I guess, at the end of the day, what we do is not nearly as worse as what all those other exploitation filmmakers that, you know, we were kind of following at the time did, right? So, yeah. So, yeah, that's Fred's Oasis, right? Yeah. All right, with all that being said, let's take a break and let's go down to the Video Street Video Store and check out what their latest stock is. Yes, remember, we'll go down to the Video Street Video Store, and I'll be back here about 12 minutes. Enjoy that.
During the past decade, an epidemic of ritual crime has swept our nation at an alarming rate. Law-abiding citizens report satanic crimes in every state, and the number of cases investigated by police continues to rise. Well-organized satanic groups are creating a reign of death and destruction which cannot be ignored. The FBI's 1988 Uniform Crime Report indicates more than 18,000 murder investigations during that year, and 26% of those murders were listed as bizarre or ritualistic. In that same year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children listed more than 9,000 unresolved cases of missing children. The National Clearinghouse on Satanic Crime in America estimates 50% of the cases of missing children and bizarre murders may be linked directly to satanic and other occult organizations. It is common for these groups to kidnap their victims, usually infants and young children, from hospitals, orphanages, shopping centers, or off the streets. Others live and die without a trace. This is because some children are born to cult members and later killed, so there are no records of their births or deaths. Inmate interviews conducted by Professor Al Carlisle of the Utah State Prison System show that lawbreakers are heavily involved in the occult. There may be as many as 60,000 human sacrifices per year in this country, according to Professor Carlisle, and there is a distinct correlation, he says, with these human sacrifices and the high number of missing persons. This is because some satanic groups dispose of their victim by dismembering the body and cremating the remains, eliminating any possibilities for identification. Members of satanic and occult groups come from all walks of life. Many are highly intelligent individuals. Michael A. Aquino, senior initiate and founder of the Temple of Set in San Francisco, is also a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. He's received a top-secret security clearance to attend the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. Anton Sandor LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan, was once a circus lion tamer. These charismatic leaders, and many like them, seek out others who have a high degree of intelligence. Some cult leaders prey upon emotionally unstable people. Examples are Jim Jones of the Guyana Massacre and Charles Manson. With his Manson family, he created a reign of terror and death. Unsuspecting young people are drawn to the occult because of various influences, including breakdown of the family unit, lack of closeness, negative lifestyles, self-centeredness, and a me-oriented society full of throwaway and latchkey kids. Adolescents are ripe for satanic or occult involvement because of their maturing nature and developing sexuality. They feel a need to belong to a peer group structure, to be accepted or identified, and stand out among their associates and friends. Teenagers also tend to be impatient. They desire quick answers and the ability to cause instant changes. This eventually leads to rebellion against parental authority and social standards. Some young people are attracted to the occult by seemingly harmless pleasures, such as games and music. They start by participating in fantasy role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. Others are drawn into Satanism by heavy metal rock music. These heavy metal groups flaunt satanic symbols on their album covers and anti-Christian satanic messages in their music. Their songs promote the demonic themes of death, doom, violence, and the rejection of morality and religion. Heavy metal groups and solo artists such as Slayer, Ozzy Osbourne, Motley Crue, Venom, and AC/DC have sent heavy metal record sales skyrocketing. Members of satanic or occult groups share common traits, such as an interest in old occultic forms of religion and worship, the desire to perform certain bizarre acts that society condemns, a belief in the ability to control magic for personal gain, mind control, or the power to force others to act out whatever is commanded of them, and the access to perform perverted sex acts such as homosexuality, bisexuality, sodomy, bestiality, and necrophilia. Not all satanic or occultic groups engage in illegal activities. However, many do, and some of their criminal acts include trespassing, vandalism, burglary, animal mutilations, trafficking and selling of illegal drugs, kidnapping, physical, mental, and sexual child abuse, rape, and murder. All of these acts are carried out in the name of Satan. Therefore, the participants have no remorse after having committed them. The Satanic philosophy teaches that personal pleasure is the ultimate achievement, even at the expense of others.
Invited to a picnic, monster picnic, but humans are allowed to date.
The Monster Plantation is a marvelous team effort between 5 different design companies. Each have their own function, and I would say that we're involving at least 100 artists, designers, and technicians.
I'd been in this animation business for about 45 years, and the last 10 years I was working at WED, doing shows for Disneyland and Disney World. And Dave Gickenbach, who was working for Six Flags, approached me. I've been retired 3 years. He approached me and asked me if I'd do a ride.
The whole project came together like this, and that's the nice thing about it.
I told him if he would turn it over to this Goddard production, they could do it. It was Gary Goddard, Tony Christopher, and Phil Mendez, who incidentally is one of the greatest cartoonists I've seen come by in the last 40 years in animation.
So what happens is that we said, well, we got to have a theme, something to theme this thing with.
And now we had to come up with an idea. And I had no idea what the idea was going to be.
So we said, okay, why don't we have to make it a sunken plantation?
So I was playing with my little granddaughter a little later on, and I was scaring her, and she was scaring me. Then she left the room, then she finally came back, and she says, I'm a big monster. And I says, where did she get that? So I said, if this little kid knows about monsters, you know, this could be a great family ride.
We've put everything we can in there. Friendly monsters and monsters that talk to you. And
also scare people, because people like to be scared.
The first half's kind of like a dream, and the second half's kind of like a nightmare.
On Miss Scarlet, initially, she was a Chamber of Commerce lady. And she would sit there, this big, fat thing, you know, sitting there and sell T-shirts and everything as we go on a ride. And she says, oh, come on in, hon. You just have a good time, sweetheart. You just love this ride, honey. Like that, you had real wild hair and everything like that. And then we go by her, and then we go by the band, see? And Gary and the guys worked up a whole bunch of stuff, you know, dialogue and stuff for this lady. And then I did, oh, God, it had to be 4 or 5 sketches of Miss Scarlet gradually changing that we did until we got to the one we have now.
Let's say we resolve all those problems, okay? Okay, but if we resolve all that stuff, once we get inside, then we're going to see the characters. What do you think the first thing we should see?
I think there should be a
After you've established the characters and the storyline, the next step is to take and create a three-dimensional model that's based on the sketches that Phil and the story sessions come up with. Well, we got to get
situated in a way that it's going to work.
Get that going counterclockwise, and the dancers will go around. Once we have that one-dimensional scale model, it's all done in 1-inch scale, and by 1-inch scale I mean anything that's 8 feet tall is 8 inches tall on the model. Then we can bring in all of our technical people, and we can talk about the various production aspects. Then we go to AVG Productions, which is responsible for fabricating the full-scale figures.
After which you can make a mold of it. And then from that mold, you make a fiberglass shell. And if necessary, in certain kinds of figures, then you would make a skin made out of some flexible material, latex or polyurethane rubber, at which time you can transfer the whole plastics section to animation, where it will be plumbed or pneumatically wired up. And then it can be sent off to cosmetics, at which time it goes through several other kinds of steps, either fur or painting or costumes. It's only after all of those steps that it can finally be programmed. The people in this area being the most highly skilled in making a machine which specifically does a movement which makes something look alive.
And if it continues that way all the way down to the end, there'll be a fantastic ride.
It's a prototype, okay? So when we design this ride, we want people to know that they can't see it anywhere else. The only place they can see it is at Six Flags Over Georgia, starting in 1981.
Yeah, as Dave and I talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago, we talked a lot about the Monster Plantation. It was initially Tales from the Okefenokee Swamp, which was essentially what Splash Mountain would later become, based on all those tales of Joel Chandler Harris. But the Monster Plantation was obviously themed to Georgia because of a lot of plantations. You think of Georgia, you think of Gone with the Wind. And then about 20 years or so, I guess, later, they changed the name to the Monster Mansion, because obviously Plantation had some racist themes. But as Dave pointed out, and I think it's a good argument, aren't people who run Plantation monsters? So it's okay to call it the Monster Plantation. I guess you're right, Dave. I don't know. Anyway. But welcome back to the show for just a few more minutes here. On the Video Street Video Store just now, you saw a excellent documentary. One thing that I have realized over the years is that Six Flags Over Georgia for a very long time did a great job of documenting itself. It just was a really grand theme park. Just a place where as a kid I went because obviously my parents couldn't afford to take us to Disney every year, right? Six Flags Over Georgia to me was better than Disney World. And I think a lot of that was because of like these very ambitious early rides that they had, that were done with a lot of heart, a lot of compassion, a lot of ingenuity by designers that you just heard there from the Goddard Group. And, tragically, I suppose that video for the Monster Plantation ties into the first video I just showed, which is one of those classic Satanic Panic VHSs from the early 90s that concerned parents, I guess, could get. What are they and that era is so interesting because they just made up facts, right? Statistics, which is something that they never do today. I just made that up. But yeah, they said that there are something like 60,000 human sacrifices in America every year. Like, are there? And most of these are missing persons cases. Okay. All right. I wonder how many there are today. Okay. Human sacrifices. Yeah, I think that obviously the Satanic Panic in the 1980s was, I think we can look back on it now and see it for what it was, which was really a smoke screen to turn our heads away from some real problems, some real people who were infiltrating the innocent worlds of children. And unfortunately, the person who owned that company that built the Monster Plantation was one of them, this guy named Gary Goddard. Gary Goddard is responsible for a lot of theme park attractions that you loved when you were a kid in the 1980s and 70s. He was a film director also. Remember, he directed that horrible, even when I was a kid, I knew it was horrible, Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren and Courtney Cox and Frank Langella as Skeletor. Yeah, he directed that movie. But yeah, a few years ago during the Me Too movement, actor Anthony Edwards from ER, right, had come forth and admitted that he and he had been, I suppose, assaulted by Gary Goddard back in the 80s when he was a young actor starting out. And yeah, a lot of other people kind of came forward too, and Gary Goddard was, I wouldn't say canceled. Canceled is usually kind of a controversial term, meaning some people get canceled without cause, maybe just an accusation. But it seems like Gary Goddard really did do the things that he was accused of. Yeah, so, but he designed the Monster Plantation. So, but yeah, I think that the Satanic Panic, that's all it was. It was just, there were some really, truly corrupt things going on in the 1980s. And this thing was just created as a way to turn our heads from all of that and get us hating all these things that good, upstanding Chamber of Commerce Protestants, hated, which is heavy metal music and just any youths, right? Any corrupt looking youths. Anyway, that's what all that was about. So, yeah. And but all that being said, though, the Monster Plantation was one of my favorite rides at Six Flags. It was one of those rides that got me really comfortable with being scared, I think. And I talked about that with Dave a couple weeks ago. It got me comfortable with being scared to the point where I could watch horror movies without running into the closet, hiding under clothes, waiting for a commercial. But yeah, I found out, though, that I can watch them passively. I cannot actively make those types of movies. And from that point on, like everything that I've ever sunk my creative teeth into has not involved anything of the exploitation variety. Maybe some car chases. Like, I love car chases, right? I've written a few of those. Those are fun to write anyway. But yeah. So that's my take on that. With that, I want to thank you so much for joining me here tonight on the Midnight Citizen Show. I have been your host, Mike Booty. Once again, you can find everything I do, including this podcast, going back 14 years over at mikesbonfire.substack.com. You can also check me out. I'm up on youtube.com/Mike Booty. That's where you can find a video of me doing this show, right? Watching the fireworks and watching Fred's Oasis. And if you want to see Fred's Oasis, I will put a link to it in the show notes. You can watch it and decide for yourself, was I right to be overwhelmed with shame, right? Back then in 2004 when I filmed that movie with my friends. I don't know. Again, it just, Fred's Oasis, it was like 3 weeks that just felt like you were being swept up into a maelstrom, and you really had no control over your mind, your body. You just went with the current. That's what it felt like. And I think that's what all creative endeavors feel like once you get kind of going, especially once you have people around you who are just as sick about it as you are, you know. You just want to do something creative. You want to make something, and you don't care who gets hurt. Right? It's maybe not a good way to put it, but anyway. I will see you next week on next week's show. Keep your eyes open.